The words came out of nowhere. "You're handsome, you know that." They dropped into the quiet of the room like a wrench slipping from a workbench. Sharp, unexpected, impossible to ignore. Malik Carter froze mid-turn. The flathead screwdriver still balanced between his fingers. The bedroom light above him had just flickered back to life, humming softly with a warm amber glow. He looked up, blinking against the sudden brightness, and saw her. Maya Williams, 32, barefoot, leaning casually against the doorway in a soft blue dress that hung on her like a memory. Her expression was calm, unreadable, but her words hung in the air, alive and deliberate. Malik straightened awkwardly, rubbing the back of his neck. Thanks," he said. His voice caught somewhere between surprise and caution. He'd heard compliments before, but this one felt different. Not playful, not teasing. It sounded honest, unfiltered, as if she were stating a fact she'd just noticed. He shifted his weight, professionalism slipping back over him like a well-worn jacket. "The issue was a loose ground connection," he said evenly, gesturing to the fixed fixture. "Old wiring. I replaced the terminal and added a stabilizer. You shouldn't have any more flickering." Maya nodded but didn't move from the doorway. "That's good," she said, her tone thoughtful. "You always explain things like that, clear, calm, like you've been doing this your whole life." Malik gave a small shrug, coiling the old wire neatly into a plastic bag. "Clarity matters," he replied, "especially when it's someone else's home." That made her smile, small, knowing, like she approved of something deeper than his words. The silence that followed wasn't awkward, just thick with something unnamed. Then, without much preamble, she asked, "Do you have time for lunch?" Malik blinked, halfway through packing his tools. "Lunch?" he echoed. "There's a place 2 blocks down," she said lightly. "They do a mean smoked turkey club. My treat." He hesitated, every rule in his book warning him against it. Never blur lines with clients. Never cross professional boundaries, especially not with someone whose house had a 3-car garage and a driveway longer than his childhood street. But she didn't push. She just stood there waiting, not demanding, not coaxing. "I appreciate it," he said finally, "but I've got another job in an hour." It was half true. The job could wait, but his discomfort couldn't. Maya studied him quietly. "Another time, then?" she asked. He nodded and she stepped closer, extending her hand. "Thanks for the fix, Malik." Her grip surprised him, firm, warm, no hint of the delicate socialite touch he'd expected. As he walked out of the room and down the hall, he felt her gaze on his back. Not flirtatious, not invasive, just present, observant, like someone seeing a truth they hadn't noticed before. Outside, the North Carolina sun burned bright over her manicured lawn. Malik climbed into his old pickup, the AC groaning as it sputtered to life. The name Williams echoed in his head as he pulled away, merging onto Providence Road. He told himself it was nothing, just another client. But by the time he reached his next job, a 1-story house with peeling paint and a crooked porch step, her voice still lingered. When he reached for his phone to log the completed job, he noticed a new message from an unknown number. The preview read, "This is Maya, in case you change your mind." He didn't open it right away. Instead, he slid the phone into his pocket and got back to work, grounding himself in routine. Malik Carter was a man of precision. Raised by a single mother who taught him to solder copper pipes by age 10, he believed in work, in reality, in rules, in keeping things neat. His hands were steady, his heart stayed guarded. But somehow her words, those 5 simple words, had cracked something in him. Like a hairline fracture in the armor he wore daily. That night, alone in his modest apartment above a barber shop, Malik lay on the couch scrolling through his phone. Her message sat there unopened, waiting. He typed a reply twice, deleted it twice, then turned off the screen. Maybe it was just lunch, he told himself. Maybe it wasn't. Either way, he couldn't afford confusion, not in business, not in life. But sleep didn't come easy. 3 days passed. Malik went from job to job, soldering, replacing panels, checking voltage. But every time his phone buzzed, his pulse spiked. On Friday afternoon, it did buzz, and another message. "Smoked turkey club still on the menu tomorrow at noon. I'll drive." There was no question mark, no hesitation. Just her voice, confident even in text. He stood in the aisle of Bailey's Hardware, surrounded by the familiar scent of cut wood and machine oil, and before he could overthink it, he typed back, "Okay, drop a pin." Saturday came too fast. Malik stood outside a small hardware store in clean jeans and a pressed gray shirt, palms sweating. At exactly 12:02, a silver Audi rolled into the lot, gliding to a stop. Maya stepped out, barefoot again, wearing another soft blue dress. Her hair was pinned up, a few loose curls framing her face. Malik blinked, half amused. "You always show up barefoot?" She smiled. "Only when I'm trying to keep things real." They drove out of the city, past brick storefronts, old churches, and weather-worn barns, the air through the cracked window carrying the scent of pine. Maya didn't play music, just let the quiet stretch comfortably between them. Finally, she said, "I know a place. Not fancy, but peaceful." 20 minutes later, they pulled into a wide clearing tucked between tall pines. A narrow river ran behind the trees, and an old picnic table stood beneath an oak's broad shadow. No one else was around. Malik stepped out, scanning the space with cautious eyes, like checking a fuse box for sparks. Maya grabbed a brown paper bag and walked barefoot through the grass. They sat, unwrapped sandwiches, and ate quietly. The turkey club was good, really good, and for a while words weren't necessary. Then Maya spoke. "Do you think I'm weird?" she asked suddenly. Malik looked up, startled. "Weird?" She laughed nervously. "Yeah, I asked a stranger to lunch, drove him to the woods, and I'm barefoot." He smiled. "You're not weird, you're unexpected. Is that a compliment?" she asked. "It is," he said. "If you've spent most of your life being ignored." That made her quiet. Then softly, "I don't ignore people. I notice them." They sat like that for a while, the breeze rustling through the trees. Maya finally broke the silence again. "I used to come here as a kid. My grandmother brought me. Said the river could wash away what people make you carry." Malik nodded, staring at the water's gentle movement. "Smart woman." Maya smiled faintly. "She raised me more than my parents did." Malik didn't pry. He just listened, letting the quiet fill in what words couldn't. After a long moment, she turned to him. "You know what I like about you?" He chuckled. "I'm cheap labor?" "No," she said, laughing. "You don't ask about my house or what I do or what my car costs. You don't seem impressed." He met her eyes. "I was taught not to stare at what doesn't belong to me." She tilted her head. "And what if it does?" He didn't answer. Not because he didn't want to, but because the question wasn't about possession and it was about permission. The light shifted, the air cooled. Malik stood slowly, brushing crumbs from his jeans. "I should go," he said quietly. Maya didn't move. "Will you?" He hesitated, then said, "Not if you ask me to stay." She smiled, small but sure. "Then stay." They stayed until the shadows grew long, talking about childhood scrapes and bad customers, laughing like old friends. It wasn't romantic, not yet, but it was honest. For a man who'd spent his life hiding behind routines and professionalism, that honesty felt dangerous and beautiful. That night, Malik didn't drive straight home. He drove past the diner where his mother once worked, past the corner where he'd been jumped as a teenager, past the high school that had forgotten his name. When he finally parked behind his apartment, his phone buzzed with another message from Maya. "Next time you bring the sandwiches." He smiled for the first time in days. The week rolled by slowly, each day filled with work and quiet thought. But on Wednesday, while replacing a junction box, his phone buzzed again. "Maya, you free Friday night?" He wiped his hands and replied, "What's the plan?" "Maya, dinner, my place. Nothing fancy." "Malik, should I bring tools or wine?" "Maya, just bring yourself. And maybe don't wear the boots." Friday came, and with it a storm of nerves. Malik stood on her porch again, but this time it wasn't a job. The door opened. Maya, barefoot as ever, in leggings and a cardigan, no makeup, no performance. Just her. "Hey," she said. "Evening," he replied, lifting a paper bag. "I brought honey cornbread. Store-bought but warm." She smiled. "That's the most southern thing I've heard all week. Come in." The house smelled of roasted garlic and rosemary. 2 plates were already set, candles flickering softly. She served salmon and roasted vegetables, and they talked. About work, about neighbors, about their worst dates. She laughed until she choked at one of his stories, and for the first time, Malik felt something loosen in his chest. After dinner, they moved to the couch. She curled up in one corner. He sat at the other. "You don't have to be polite," she teased. "I wasn't raised to slouch in a woman's house," he replied. She rolled her eyes. You're allowed to be comfortable. Especially here. Something shifted then, a quiet gravity filling the air between them. You ever wonder what people say about us? She asked suddenly. Malik frowned. Us? You, me, this, she said, gesturing vaguely around. My world's loud. People notice. They have opinions. Malik met her gaze steadily. I don't aim to impress and I don't ask for permission. Maya smiled faintly. That's what scares them. He looked at her. What about you? I don't scare easy, she said softly. When he left that night, there was no kiss, no promise. Just a glance, a smile, and her words as he stepped off the porch. You still owe me sandwiches. He looked back, grinning. Next time I'll even toast them. The next few days moved like molasses, thick, slow, heavy with unspoken things. Malik buried himself in work, rewiring homes, fixing outlets, replacing breakers. But even the steady hum of tools couldn't drown out Maya's voice or the quiet comfort of her laughter. It was strange, he thought, how someone could step into your life so gently and still rearrange everything inside you. By Wednesday afternoon, his phone buzzed again while he was crouched under a kitchen sink replacing a junction box. Wiping sweat from his brow, he glanced at the screen. Maya, you free Friday night? He smirked. Depends who's asking. Her reply came quick. Dinner. My place, no dress code. No boots. Friday came, bringing with it both nerves and anticipation. Malik stood on her porch once again, holding a warm paper bag and trying not to overthink the knot in his chest. When the door opened, the smell of roasted garlic and rosemary drifted out, wrapping around him like a welcome. Maya stood there in leggings and a soft cardigan, barefoot of course, her hair tied back loosely. Hey, she said, her voice softer this time. Evening, he replied, smiling. Brought honey cornbread. Store-bought, but I warmed it. Her eyes brightened. That's the most southern thing I've heard all week. Come in. The dinner was simple but perfect. She'd made glazed salmon, roasted vegetables, and poured them each a glass of red wine. They talked about work, childhood, and everything in between. The kind of conversation that moved effortlessly from laughter to reflection. Malik told her about the time he got stuck under a crawl space for 3 hours in July. Maya laughed so hard she choked on her asparagus. When she recovered, she said through a smile, You have a quiet way of being loud. Malik raised a brow. That a compliment? She nodded. It is. You don't force presence, you just have it. After dinner, they drifted to the living room. Maya curled into the corner of her oversized couch, pulling a blanket over her legs. Malik sat on the far end, unsure if it was polite to move closer. You don't need to act like a guest, she said. I wasn't raised to slouch in a woman's house, he replied. She rolled her eyes. You're allowed to be comfortable, especially here. The moment hung in the air between them, soft but heavy, like the calm before rain. Then she asked, You ever wonder what people might say about us? The question broke the quiet like a crack of thunder. Malik looked at her, unsure. Us, he repeated. You, me, this, she said, gesturing to the space around them. My world is loud. People notice. They'll have opinions. Malik leaned back, his voice even. I don't aim to impress and I don't ask for permission. Maya smiled faintly. That's what scares them. He met her eyes. What about you? She held his gaze. I don't scare easy. That night he left without a kiss, just a glance and a promise of sandwiches. It was enough. But the next morning, as he sat in a diner near his apartment sipping black coffee, reality returned with the kind of sharpness that only other people's words can bring. Behind him, 2 men whispered just loud enough to be heard. Ain't that the guy with the rich woman from Instagram? One said. He's just her project, the other laughed. Malik froze. He didn't turn around, didn't react. He just stared into his coffee, the taste suddenly bitter. He told himself to shake it off. Words were just noise, but the noise followed him. The next week, his boss called him into the office. Malik, the older man said, folding his arms. You got any idea why the Simon account just pulled out? Malik frowned. No, sir. I haven't even worked that property in weeks. The man sighed. They mentioned something about public image. Said they saw something online. Malik felt his jaw tighten. I haven't done anything but my job, he said, keeping his voice level. Good, his boss said quietly. Let's keep it that way. That night, Malik sat awake on the edge of his bed, his phone heavy in his hand. He wanted to call Maya, to tell her about the account, the whispers, the looks. But what would that solve? Instead, he scrolled through their old messages, the jokes, the soft silences between texts, and something inside him ached. The following evening, Maya called first. "You free?" she asked. "Define free," he said dryly. "I'm standing on my driveway with 2 milkshakes and no one to share them with." Malik smiled despite himself. "You bought 2 on purpose, didn't you?" "No comment," she said. "Come over." "Be there in 15, he replied. When he arrived, she was sitting on the front steps, legs tucked under her, sipping from a cup topped with whipped cream. She handed him the other one. "Chocolate peanut butter," she said. "Figured you for a classic." They sat in silence for a while, listening to the wind hum through the trees. Then Maya's tone shifted. "I need to ask you something," she said quietly. Malik nodded. "Go ahead." "Did someone say something to you?" He hesitated. "Why?" "Because something's different," she said. "You're here, but part of you's pulled back." Malik looked down at the milkshake in his hands. "I heard something at the diner," he admitted. "Some guy called me your project." Maya's shoulders sank. "I'm sorry," she said. "You don't need to apologize for what people say." "I do," she said softly, "when they say it because of me." He finally looked at her. "It's not your fault I don't fit into their world." She met his gaze, her voice steady. "You fit into mine, and that's the only one I care about." A long silence followed, broken only by the rustle of leaves. Then Malik sighed. "I lost a client this week. Simon's estate. After that video of us at the park got posted." Maya's head snapped up. "What video?" "Someone must have taken a picture. It spread around online." She swore under her breath, standing to pace the porch. "I'm so sick of this," she muttered. "Sick of what?" he asked. "Of people thinking they get to decide who I can be with," she said fiercely. "Who you get to be. It's exhausting." Malik stood, his voice low. "Then maybe we take a break." The words hit her like a slap. "What?" "Not from each other," he said quickly, "just from the noise. From all of it. I need to breathe, Maya." She looked at him, pain flickering in her eyes. "If that's what you need?" "It's not forever," he said. "I know," she whispered. She stepped closer then, placing her hand flat on his chest. "You're not a project, Malik Carter," she said firmly. "You're not small or temporary or a symbol. You're real." He swallowed hard. "Then why does it feel like I have to fight to prove that?" She didn't answer, just leaned her forehead against his and stayed there. When he left that night, the porch light stayed on long after he'd gone. Rain fell the next afternoon, steady and unrelenting. Malik sat in his truck, engine off, watching droplets slide down the windshield. It had been a week since that night, 5 days since their last call, 4 nights of half sleep. He missed her voice, her honesty, the quiet gravity she brought into his world. The space he'd asked for hadn't brought peace. It had brought clarity. He didn't want quiet if it meant being without her. He drove to her house without planning to. When she opened the door, she looked different. Softer, tired, wearing an oversized hoodie with a paint smudge on her wrist. "Hey," he said. "Hey," she echoed. "I was in the area." She raised an eyebrow. "You came from 4th Street." He grinned weakly. "Okay, I lied." She stepped aside. "You coming in or just measuring humidity from the porch?" The scent of acrylic and coffee filled the air. Canvases leaned against the walls. Storms of color, chaos, and truth. One half-finished painting caught his eye. All blues and charcoal grays. "Yours?" he asked. "Therapy," she said simply. He walked closer. "You ever plan to show these?" "No, they're not for anyone but me." Malik studied the brushstrokes, messy, honest, alive. They look like they've been waiting a long time to exist. Maya sat cross-legged on the floor, hugging her knees. "When I was 14, she said quietly, my art teacher told me I had talent, then told me not to waste it on urban angst. That was her word. Malik sat opposite her. My guidance counselor told me to aim for electrician because college might frustrate me. She laughed softly, the sound sad and knowing. I didn't come here to dredge up the past, he said. Then why did you? She asked. He hesitated. Because I don't want to be a man who walks away when things get hard. And because I realize this isn't noise. It's real, She tilted her head. Real and terrifying, she whispered. Same, he said. For a while they sat in silence, rain tapping the windows. Then Maya stood, crossed to a shelf, and pulled out a folder. There's something I need to show you. Inside were screenshots, blog posts, social media comments, photos of them at the park, words that cut, twisted, mocked. How long? He asked quietly. Since that day, she said. Someone at that party recognized you. It spread from there. Malik exhaled. They know where you live? She nodded. I upgraded the cameras. Got a security company on call. You should have told me. I didn't want to scare you off. He looked at her, voice low. You think I scare easy? You asked for space, Malik, she reminded him. I thought you were gone. He looked down at his hands, jaw tight. I thought space would protect us. But there's no safe distance from them. No, she agreed softly. But there's strength in being close. He looked up, meeting her gaze. I'm here, he said. And I'm not hiding. She moved closer, their knees brushing. I can't promise it'll get easier, she said. I don't want easier, he said. I want truth, she nodded. Then let's start now. That night they sat side by side on her couch, watching the rain fade into night. No music, no words, just silence shared, not suffered. Maya rested her head on his shoulder. You know, she murmured. I've been called a lot of things. Too bold, too cold, too much. He kissed her temple. They missed the best one. What's that? Yours. She smiled soft and sure. And for the first time, Malik let the word ours settle into his heart like it had a home there. 2 months passed, not in a blur, but in deliberate, steady motion. The world around them kept talking, whispering, judging, but Malik and Maya stopped listening. They built instead. On Sunday mornings, Malik brought breakfast from the diner down the street, still warm. And Maya brewed coffee in the French press she swore made it taste more alive. They'd sit by the window of her studio, the sun spilling across the paint-streaked floor, their knees touching under the table. Outside, the world spun as it always had, loud and divided, but inside, they found something resembling peace. It was on one of those mornings that Maya set her coffee down and said, I have an idea. Malik chuckled. That sentence usually ends with paint or trouble. She grinned. This time both. She handed him a tablet, the screen showing a simple web page, Carter Works, a logo of a clenched fist holding a lightning bolt, and the tagline, Built with Hands. Driven by heart. Malik blinked. Is this real? It's a draft, she said proudly. You said you wanted to go independent, so I made a start. He stared, stunned. You did all this? Every word, every color, she said. Even picked fonts. You're a Georgia man, so I figured strong lines and bold type. Malik laughed softly, shaking his head. Why? He asked finally. Maya's gaze was steady. Because when I see something worth building, I don't wait for the world to validate it. I invest. By the end of that week, Carter Works was more than a concept. Malik had filed the paperwork for his own electrical business, and Maya helped him design flyers. On Saturday, they walked hand in hand through local neighborhoods, taping them to light poles, leaving them in mailboxes. A man with a cane stopped to read one. You, Carter? He asked. Malik nodded. Good hands matter, the man said. My son hired some tech who couldn't tell a wire from spaghetti. I'll call you. Malik grinned all the way down the block. But success never came without resistance. A week later, Malik was called to a job in South Charlotte, a large colonial house with ivy climbing the pillars. The woman who opened the door looked at him like she'd seen him somewhere before. You're from that new company, Carter Works? She asked. Yes, ma'am, he said politely. Owner and technician. Her eyes narrowed. I thought so. You were on that blog with Maya Williams, weren't you? He didn't respond. She crossed her arms. She's a friend of my husband's firm. You really think this arrangement will last? Malik's voice stayed calm. Ma'am, I think honest work lasts longer than gossip. Her lips tightened. We'll see. He finished the job efficiently, repaired the circuit, and left an invoice without another word. But the echo of her tone followed him into his truck. He sat for a long moment, letting the spring air cool his thoughts. His phone buzzed. Maya, lunch at the shop. Bring those paint-stained hands. He smiled despite the weight in his chest and drove there. The space Maya had rented for her design studio was a converted brick storefront downtown. She'd hung some of her smaller paintings on one wall, while the other side held Malik's tools and diagrams. It wasn't fancy, but it felt alive. He told her about the encounter, about the woman's words. Maya's jaw tightened, but instead of anger, she walked to one of her old canvases, a swirl of black and white lines stitched with a streak of gold. "I painted this 2 years ago," she said. "Right after my ex-fiancé told me I wasn't relatable enough for his clients." She looked at the canvas, remembering. "I almost destroyed it. Then I realized broken doesn't mean disposable." She turned to Malik. "You're not a phase. You're not a scandal. You're not something people whisper about until the next headline." He stepped closer. "And you're not my savior. Or my shield." "I don't want you to be." Maya smiled faintly. "Good," she said. "Then let's just keep building," and they did. Weeks turned into months, and Carter Works began to grow. Slowly, quietly, through reputation, not advertisement, word spread about Malik's reliability, his honesty, his precision. He hired 2 young apprentices from his old neighborhood, teaching them wiring, safety, respect. Maya launched her own design branch from the same space, focusing on community projects and local branding. Together they hosted Fix-It Days once a month, free repairs for seniors, single parents, and veterans. The whispers didn't stop, but they got quieter, and Malik found something stronger than silence: purpose. Then, one Monday morning, a phone call came that changed everything again. "Mr. Carter," a woman's voice said, "this is Angela Morton from the Hale family estate. We need an urgent repair, chandelier wiring in the sunroom. Are you available?" The Hales were old money, a name whispered in boardrooms and charity galas. Malik hesitated. "Yes, ma'am. I can be there by 11. When he arrived, the estate was as grand as expected. White columns, manicured lawns, air that smelled of money and rules. The housekeeper led him upstairs, explaining the problem. He was halfway through inspecting the chandelier when a familiar voice spoke behind him. "Well, this is unexpected." Malik turned slowly. Standing in the doorway was Stephen Grayson, Maya's ex-fiancé. The man wore confidence like a weapon, his suit immaculate, his smirk sharper than glass. "Didn't realize you moonlighted as an electrician," Grayson said. Malik's tone stayed calm. "I own the business." Grayson stepped closer, voice dripping with condescension. Maya always had a taste for unconventional project. Malik kept his eyes on the wires. "I'm not her project." "No?" Grayson scoffed. "Then what are you?" "Her rebellion? Her message to Daddy? You're temporary, Carter. You'll see." Malik didn't flinch. "I build things that last, including myself." Grayson chuckled coldly and walked out. Malik finished the job in silence, took his payment, and left. That night he found Maya in her studio painting. "Grayson was at the Hale house," he said quietly. She froze mid-stroke, the brush trembling in her hand. "What did he say?" "Enough," Malik answered. "But I need to ask you something." She turned, wary. "If it ever came down to your world and mine," he said, "what would you choose?" Maya set the brush down, eyes hard but clear. "I don't believe I should have to choose," she said. "But if they make me, I'll burn the line they drew." Malik stepped closer, a slow nod forming. "They already drew it." "Then we build on the ashes," she said simply. 2 days later, Maya published an open letter in the Charlotte Ledger, titled, "When We Love Outside the Lines." It didn't name names, but everyone knew. Her words were unapologetic. "Some see what I've built with Malik Carter as rebellion. But rebellion implies destruction. What we are doing is construction, of equity, of presence, of partnership. If that makes people uncomfortable, they should ask themselves why." By noon, the article had gone viral. Over 2,000 shares, countless comments. Supporters flooded their inboxes, but so did detractors. One email came from Angela Morton, the estate manager. "The Hale family wishes to cancel future services with Carter Works." Malik replied simply, "Noted. Thank you." When he told Maya, she just shrugged. "We'll gain 10 more," she said. That evening, they stood on the rooftop of their shared studio, watching the city glow beneath them. Malik took her hand. "You know what Grayson said?" "What?" "That I'm temporary." Maya smiled faintly. "Then let's outlast him." Spring arrived with storms. Heavy, relentless rain tore through Charlotte for nearly a week, flooding streets and knocking out power across the city. Malik barely slept, working back-to-back emergency calls. Seniors with no lights, mothers with failing fridges, apartment complexes with sparking panels. But on the 6th day, the storm hit him differently. Devin, his apprentice, texted, "Hey boss, you see the article?" Malik frowned. "What article?" Then 3 more messages came through, all linking to the same blog post. The headline read, "Community Hero or Social Climber? The Rise of Carter Works Under Maya Williams' Wing." The piece was venom disguised as journalism, twisting Maya's letter, painting Malik as a pawn, accusing them both of playing a woke marketing stunt. They even used a photo of him fixing a light for an elderly black woman with the caption, "Charity or Performance." Malik's stomach dropped. He didn't finish reading. He just drove down to the studio where Maya was painting again. She didn't ask what was wrong. She already knew. "It's out, isn't it?" she said. He nodded, jaw tight. "They didn't come for us," he said bitterly. "They came for me." "No," Maya said, setting down her brush. "They came for the idea of us. Because it challenges what they think belongs to them." He sat heavily on the bench, rubbing his face. "They turned everything we built into a punchline." "They tried," Maya said quietly. "But we're still standing." "They're dragging my name," he muttered. "I can survive that," she said, "but can we survive the silence?" The question hung like fog. Then softly she asked, "Do you want to stop?" He lifted his head, eyes red but steady. "I used to think I could outwork judgment," he said. "That if I was good enough, useful enough, they'd let me in the room. But they don't care what I fix. They only care what I represent." Maya's voice softened. "And what do you represent, Malik?" He exhaled. "Disruption." A small, tired laugh escaped her lips. "Then you're not the only one." They sat shoulder to shoulder as the storm rattled the windows. When her phone buzzed, she glanced at the screen, then handed it to him. It was an email from NPR Charlotte. "We'd love to interview you both for a segment on resilience and reimagining success." Malik stared at it for a moment, then met her eyes. "You think this helps?" Maya smiled faintly. "It's a start." The interview aired the following week. 15 minutes of truth, calm and unpolished. Malik spoke plainly. "I'm not interested in being anyone's headline. I just want to build things that don't fall apart in storms. And I found someone who holds the same blueprint." When asked what it meant to build with someone outside her world, Maya said, "We build with what we have." He brought his hands. I brought the room. Support poured in from unexpected places. Local business owners, church leaders, even high school students who said their story made them believe in something again. The same blog tried to publish a follow-up, but no one cared anymore. The narrative had shifted, because they didn't break. One evening, Malik stood on the same porch where she'd once offered him a milkshake and a smile. "You scared?" she asked quietly. He looked out at the quiet street, lights glowing in their studio down the block. "Yeah," he admitted. Then, after a beat, "But not of them anymore." "What then?" she asked. He turned to her. "Of how much I care about this. About you. About all of it." Maya rested a hand on his chest. "That's not fear," she said. "That's weight. The kind worth carrying." Autumn came quietly. No headlines, no fireworks, just soft light and golden leaves gathering at the curbs. Carter Works was thriving now, not explosively but deeply. Malik still showed up to every job himself, still said yes ma'am and no sir even when he didn't have to. People no longer looked at him like a novelty. They looked at him like someone they could trust. One afternoon, Malik stood outside a modest 2-story house on Belmont Avenue. White siding, red door, cracked driveway, but it was theirs. Inside, sunlight pooled across the floors like a promise. 2 mugs sat on the counter and a stack of paint swatches labeled dining room palette. In the back, Maya crouched in front of a blank wall, pencil in hand, barefoot as always. "What are you doing?" he asked, smiling. "Planning," she said. "For what?" "A mural," she said softly. "Of what?" "Not sure yet," she smiled. "But I think it starts with hands." He walked over and kissed her temple. "You know, this still feels wild." "It's not wild," she said, turning to face him. "It's earned." 2 weeks later, they held a small opening at their shared studio, now renamed the Williams and Carter Studio. Half workshop, half gallery. It was a space for both wiring and art, for mending and making. The sign above the door was simple wood carved by hand. Friends, neighbors, and old clients came. Kids from the neighborhood brought paint-stained hands and wide eyes. Maya stood before the small crowd and said simply, "There's a difference between being given something and being trusted to build it. We built this, every hinge, every color, every corner. We built it knowing there'd be days we'd have to choose between love and peace, between truth and safety, and we chose each other." When she stepped down, Malik took her place. "I used to think the only thing I'd ever own was a toolbox," he said quietly. "Turns out I get to own something a whole lot heavier." He paused, scanning the room, the faces, the light, the laughter. Hope. That night they stood together on their porch, wrapped in one blanket, the wind rustling through the trees. The city around them buzzed softly, alive, imperfect, beautiful. "We didn't just survive," Maya whispered. Malik smiled. "No," he said. "We built." And beneath that vast Carolina sky they stood, unshaken, unbought, unbroken. Two people who rewired not just a light, but the story the world once tried to write for them.